important information about what's going on right now. You know, it's like you have key information. You know, like you have. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. Like 3 or 4 times, but I've been watching David Sereda since I've said this before, since he used to come on the Art Bell show back in 2001. He came on the Art Bell show with his good friend Dan Aykroyd. Yeah, that's right. He's friends with the longtime actor Dan Aykroyd, who has also a big interest in ufology. And you know, that was a great show. And David's, you know, been on shows like Carrie Cassidy, who comes on my show. I like Carrie a lot. And you know, but let me just read his bio, because today we're going to be getting into some stuff that's really important that David kind of covered on his channel. But I think it's really important for people to know about press and what's going on right now in the world. But to read his bio, David Sereda is a longtime UFO researcher, inventor, Tesla technology expert. He joins the Typical Skeptic Podcast to discuss some of the most controversial topics in modern science and disclosure. With decades of research into fusion energy, zero-point energy, advanced physics, David shares his perspective on the ongoing battle over free energy technologies, the mysterious pattern of scientists and researchers disappearing, and what may be really happening inside the scenes. We'll also explore the reported death of David Wilcock and the speculation surrounding it, along with the broader questions about suppression, control, and hidden technological breakthroughs. This is a deep dive that you know, intersects science, secrecy, and disclosure. And with all that said, I'd like to give him a big warm welcome back to the show. David, thanks so much for coming back on, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Staying alive and all this. I mean, it's I spent a good chunk of my life, 20 years, working with a major nuclear scientist group that was working on nuclear fusion energy, and way back in the 80s. And you can see, I mean, what we found, and I'll detail this. The battle for who controls science and energy is a war. It's a real war. And I think it's really quite astounding, because you can see when America was relying on its own oil, America was very wealthy and there was a lot of money in the country. And as soon as America started relying on and saving its own oil for the purpose of the future, they started relying on Middle Eastern oil. And that sent billions and billions of dollars abroad. And of course, it created a relationship with the Middle East. And the Middle East is largely an Islamic republic. I mean, the whole thing. And I say largely because, of course, you have Israel and you have some Christian territories, but I would say it's largely today an Islamic world. So that's a relationship. And the battle over fusion energy for me started when I started working for a legendary group of nuclear physicists. And let me just go to my share screen and go to this page here. See if that loads.
Yeah, I was saying I watched your live stream, David. It seems like you were in the Middle East when 9/11 happened. Like you were there to present like your theories on advanced fusion technology or something. Is that what happened?
Yeah, it says StreamYard. Okay, here it's just
I'll
really
add this thing.
Okay, 3i Atlas reveals.
Yeah, I added it. Yeah, sorry.
Fuel and abundance. My 20-year. Yeah, so let me just click on that article. It just seems like it takes a bit of time to load into the.
I'm gonna make it bigger so we can see it.
There we go. So there's my article, and this is one of the reasons I was in the Middle East. Okay, so you can scroll down through this article. This is a diagram cutaway of my former boss and employer, Bogdan C. Maglich, was a MIT PhD in physics, professor at Rutgers, award-winning physicist, who won awards for the discovery of subatomic particles called mesons in the family of subatomic particle research. And Magwitch is the inventor of aneutronic energy, and a reactor. You're seeing a cutaway of the reactor that he built, a total of 3 or 4 test models called MIGMA. And these were financed by actually Saudis and some the Swiss. There's a company in Switzerland, and the U.S. Air Force spent at least $5 million in 1980s dollars, right? So that would be $75, $100 million today, with massive inflation that has occurred. So I was part of this group. I came into this company in the early 90s when Magwitch moved his company to California, to Irvine, California. And I met him on the steps of Southern California Edison. And I thought it was going to be a slam dunk that I was introduced by the president of Edison, Southern California Edison, as the utility, one of the major utility companies in greater Los Angeles, Southern California. And they were going to give this group the money to build this final machine. And this final machine was tested at, again, Air Force contracts that were totaling almost $5 million in 1980s dollars. I'm just going to try and go here we go. This is the Air Force letter right here. I'm just going to put this letter up on the screen for a second. And what had actually happened is the Air Force study, headed by a Major General, Donald Lamberson, at Kirtland Air Force Base under Bechtel Engineering, was to simulate using the equivalent of AI Air Force simulation technology in the 1980s. They were computers called Super Cray 2s. And the study, Magwitch built consecutive designs of this power plant and tested them, and found, just making little adjustments to perfect the design, each successive design model got better and better results. And this final design, which was terrifying to the oil industry, which I'll explain, the study proved in these simulation models that it would produce 1 billion watts of power in a cubic meter. So, 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet and change. So, and that this reactor didn't produce heat like normal nuclear reactions do, where you have to boil water and turn a steam engine, which is how nuclear power plants work. It produced pure charged particles that convert directly to electricity, obviating the heat cycle common to nuclear power plants. And in addition to that, NASA, getting a copy of the study, found that it could be a propulsion drive. A fusion machine, just like Star Trek, is not only an energy source, it's a propulsion drive. And the velocities, so I did all the communications at NASA with a man named Earl Van Landingham, who was NASA's then director of propulsion, power, and energy in the early 90s. He said, and this is really frustrating, that up on the space station, we're still using solar panels, and we need this reactor up there so we can do high energy experiments, and that we could send spacecraft up to 1/10 the speed of light, which is 67 million miles per hour. So let that sink in, because a fusion reactor is both an energy source and it's a propulsion source, and there's many other spin-offs, because it also can produce very valuable medical and other nuclear isotopes. So it's a fusion means creation. So when you fuse two elements together, you create new elements. And there's ways of running cycles into these machines to generate reactions that are benign, and also open portals, actual portals. So what happened, as you can see in this Air Force letter, it became classified. And it was classified under the Democrats. And that's who really blocked this thing all along. This is Magwitch here with Glenn Seaborg. And so I was around all these scientists off and on for a couple of decades, and I was very close to Magwitch himself. And this is Magwitch with Glenn Seaborg here, who is the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission, Nobel Prize winner in physics. And he chaired the Atomic AEC under Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, authorizing all the nuclear testing in Nevada. And they were working on nuclear-powered rockets way back when. And in Nevada, so in the Area 51 region. And this was highly classified research. So one day I'm having a meeting with Seaborg, his partner in research, Albert Ghiorso, and Magwitch, and we're having lunch at the Berkeley lab. It was a meeting. And then I told them that I grew up in Berkeley as a kid in 1967, 68. I saw a flying saucer right above the entire area. We lived in Albany, which is where that sighting was. But, at the height of the saucer, the entire East Bay could have seen it. It was pandemonium on the streets that day, and it was a clear sky, and this metallic saucer is hovering up there. And then we watched it for a full 20 minutes. And then, boom, it just took off. Gone. I mean, I don't know if it hypervelocity'd out or if it went into another dimension. So the speeds that we have so far on the Tic Tac are as high as 28,000 miles an hour and up, because we can't get really clear data from the radar reports, because they keep changing their mind. I've calculated it as high as 60,000 miles an hour on certain data, and as little as 23,000 miles an hour. So compare that to 67 million miles per hour in Magwitch's fusion drive. There's one report from Commander David Fravor, who said that on radar, the UAP jumped 60 miles. He said just like that. So that's 1 second. So that's 216,000 miles an hour. Nobody's even mentioned that. But still, 216,000 miles an hour is shy of 67 million, which is what Earl Van Landingham told me about Magwitch's drive. So Seaborg, when I told him about my sighting with Ghiorso, his assistant, Ghiorso, Seaborg and Ghiorso are heavy particle hunters. So they used particle accelerators to look for heavier and heavier, and actually got their names on multiple new discovered subatomic particles that are heading towards Bob Lazar's element 115. They're very, very close to that. And now we're past 115, by the way. So when you get to the understanding that fusion and propulsion are tied together, you can see where the classification comes in. You can't release this new energy source with the technology being unclassified, without a foreign adversary getting access to that kind of propulsion power, which is enormous. And you can control the velocity, Earl said to me, that by opening up like a lens the back of the drive. So if you only have a small hole, you'll go slower. And it's just kind of like it's basically an ion propulsion drive, but way beyond any ion propulsion drives anybody's testing so far, way beyond. So what happens now is I get into a phone call with Magwitch before he dies, and he may be the first murder, even though he's elderly. He's in his upper 80s. This was 2017. And because of the work I've been doing with my coil systems, which people can see at davidsereda.co, which I've been doing for years, Magwitch really liked my coils as magnetic field generators. See, to create nuclear fusion, you need an organized magnetic field. And you have to understand a lot about magnetism, which I do in magnetic field. So we had a proprietary discussion, and any scientist who has any brains does this, is they never put the most important information in their patent. They keep it in here. And that's the only security you have, because once you publish a patent, once you file a patent, the military has full access to it. And then there are people that can get in there and steal it. So Magwitch and I went over classified aspects to the final design, which he agreed on some of 2 or 3 of my ideas, because he was about to receive a $50 million contract from the US government in 2017, not to create energy with his machine, but to make medical isotopes that are very expensive. And we detailed what those isotopes were, medical isotopes. And so what happens next is I'm a shareholder in the company. He gave me a lot of shares, 500,000 shares. I still have my share certificate. And I worked as president of High Energy Technologies, one of his other companies, which was a bomb detection technology and all contraband detection technology and DNA sequencing technology. And I was also a shareholder in that company. And so he had many companies going on. He appoints me director of the Tesla Foundation. So let me scroll in my article down here. This is my letter of appointment to speak in the United States Congress on April 1st, 1993, in room 2362 of the Rayburn Building, which I did. I spoke in the U.S. Congress on nuclear fusion. We were just, completely just legally, they had to hear us out. But Tom Bevel, the chairman of the committee, who's a Democrat, blocked us from all funding. In fact, we were not only testifying in Congress why the nation needed this, why NASA needed this, but that they were going to block it to all ends of the earth and make sure this technology never saw the light of day. And so I was then appointed director of the Tesla Foundation. This is my letter of appointment signed by Magwitch right here. And to go out and get funding through a nonprofit company of his, which is the Tesla Foundation. Magwitch is from the same country as Nikola Tesla, right? So I go and build a team of people that I have. And the first thing he does is he gives me a list of corporations that give money. And I'm not cold calling these corporations. I have personal contacts that I'm supposed to call that Magwitch knows. Remember, the Air Force spent $5 million of this, and the Saudis spent more than that on this. And other private investors spent a lot of money on this to get this to the point that the final design, the Air Force study said it would change the world. We'd have 1 billion watts of environmentally clean power, fusing deuterium and helium-3. Deuterium is heavy hydrogen, slightly radioactive, very slightly. And helium-3 is found in moon dust. And 9 grams of helium-3 will produce the energy of 1,000 barrels of crude oil.
Wow.
So I'm on the phone with a contact at Shell Oil, and this contact at Shell Oil threatened my life. So that is a very clear picture of what can happen.
David, I got a question. I wanted to get your opinion on this. You mentioned helium-3. I've heard some certain contactees talking about that they might already be drilling up on the moon for helium-3. Do you think they're already doing that? So do you think they're already using this technology or experimenting with it in some way? And do you think that's true that they're up there on the moon already drilling for it?
Oh, I think many ETs use helium-3 fuel. Yes, I think it's the most energetic fuel, nuclear fuel per fuel weight that we know of.
Yeah.
Setting aside element 115, which is speculative, but it's also a very interesting story that Bob Lazar has, because Lazar's story is, but let me, before I go to Lazar's story, let me just finish this, because then I, through a friend of mine, Nancy Pfister in Aspen, Colorado, who is from one of the wealthiest families in Aspen, who is friends with everybody in Aspen. Nancy knew everybody. She knew Jack Nicholson. She knew, everybody in Aspen. I mean, the richest people in America are there. In fact, her godfather was George Stranahan, who was an owner of Champion Spark Plugs and had just sold it for pretty close to $500 million. And we're talking 1990s here. And I met with George and Nancy in George's house, and he went on to tell me why it wasn't his responsibility to be funding this. And Nancy went on and on and on, introducing me to one super mega wealthy American after another. And they all just declined, including Robert Redford, declined. And many other celebrities like Jane Fonda decline. I get these, decline letters from their offices. But I'm being personally introduced in the homes of these people in Aspen, Colorado. Not Robert Redford in person, but I did get to Robert Redford and get a big fat no. But what happens next is later in Nancy's life, she calls me up. This was... the date, if I click on this, let me see, do we go to this page? Let me see if our screen share is working here on this. Yeah, the murder of Nancy Pfister. Okay, so Nancy was murdered February 26, 2014 at 57 years old in her own home. And Nancy, I'm not going to blame her murder necessarily on Magwitch at all. But Nancy called me up, and her dad, Art Pfister, and Betty Pfister had passed away, and there were estate lawyers that controlled the Pfister estate, and she was fighting the lawyers because she wanted to release all the money because she wanted to do something with it for humanity. I'm not going to say what that was, but she told me what it was. And Nancy, very shortly after that call, is murdered, and I spent a lot of time in that house with her house, going to meetings that she was setting up. She also pursued a long business relationship with Magwitch. He gave her shares for her work in trying to get his money. She's murdered, and the murderer is a total cover-up and a lie. That's all I can tell you, because I know everything about the murder. And I know so much that it could get me in a lot of trouble. But so let's just put that away and then come back to here. So what you're seeing is, I get my life threatened. Magwitch and I spend quality time on the phone about this incredible advancement in understanding how to engineer the machine. And let me just show you a picture of Magwitch again. Magwitch is a legendary nuclear physicist. You don't understand. We had in our company, in our actual company, a handful of the most brilliant living physicists of our time. And they're all working for Magwitch. Glenn Seaborg, Murray Gell-Mann, who discovered quarks, Nobel Prize winner Clifford Scholl, and Norman Rostocker was a Maxwell Prize winning physicist and Canadian physicist who was living and working and teaching at the University of California at Irvine. And so Magwitch suddenly dies. November 25th, 2017, after our last call, he dies. And he's old, right? So Magwitch is 89 when he died. But what he told me is his health was perfect, and doctor said there were no health problems, because I wanted to know his health because he's about to get this huge contract. So Magwitch, we had actor Harry Hamlin from LA Law, Buzz Aldrin, who walked on the moon and was an Apollo astronaut, was on our board of directors. And I was at all the board meetings. And I knew a lot, a real lot. I only have grade 11 and 12 physics, but my job was communication and to know everything about the machine and how it worked. Believe me, to know how a machine works versus a degree in physics are two totally different areas. In fact, most physicists don't know anything about how machines work. They're not engineers. They don't really design nuclear fusion systems. Because somebody has a degree in physics doesn't necessarily mean they know anything about how a machine works. But so that's why, you know, in my 20 years plus of building magnetic field systems for multiple reasons, multiple purposes, including treating the human nervous system and the human body, but also for other reasons, which were very clear in the work of Nikola Tesla and what his magnetic field generators did for the human civilization. So what happens now, Magwitch is dead, and I don't know what happened to the contract. I write the CEO about my shares, and he says he'll get back to me. He never gets back to me, which is illegal. That's corporate fraud. And they dissolved the company, which was called CalSec, California Science and Engineering Corporation, and it's all gone. It just vanishes. So I forget about it. And then all of a sudden, on December the 16th, 2025, there's an announcement that Trump Media Corporation is going to merge with TAE Fusion. And I decide I want to find out who TAE Fusion is. So let me just show you on the screen. Oh no, we were still sharing. Sorry, I got to reshare. It looks like it was.
I gotta minimize the screen real quick so I can reshare right when you add it out. It's moving slow here. It's okay. Let me see here.
It just takes a second to load it up again. I didn't know it was following me around. I thought I had to quit it. Just gotta wait a second for it to. There we go. So this company gets named. Now this is the biggest lie in history, because Trump media doesn't know what this company has done. So this company is not who they say they are. So you can see on the screen here. If I go to company, history of innovation, look at this. He worked for Magwitch. They're claiming, and he's dead. Of course, he's dead. Norm's dead. I knew Norm. He was at all the board meetings. Norm is not the inventor of the technology at all. Nor I have his letter of appointment by Magwitch, where Norm Rostocker agrees to work with and for Magwitch in a joint effort on his fusion machine, which is already a machine. And Norm comes on after the Magwitch has already designed the machine. And TAE Fusion is saying the moment discovery of TA is born is Norman Rostocker. And this is all this stuff about Norm. Norm would be outraged in heaven, absolutely outraged, because it says right here, TA's visionary group of co-founders includes Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin, geneticist Andrew Conrad, actor Harry Hamlin, Glenn Seaborg, Bechtel Corporation. That was the Air Force study with Bechtel under Magwitch. And there's no Magwitch mentioned at all. Nothing. He's gone. They kicked him out. What the hell happened? This is absolutely criminal what they're doing here. I knew all these people. None of these people were I don't even know how this TAE company even claims to be anything, because they're just they dissolved Magwich's companies, Advanced Physics Corporation, CalSec, High Energy, and they superimpose his team onto TAE. And Trump Media is about to merge with this company. This company has already attracted billions of dollars in investments from other big companies because of the announcement, and apparently has acquired some 1,600 patents. Right there is a red flag. If you're buying up all the patents out there, then you're trying to isolate all the competition under one umbrella. You're not confident the machine you have is going to do the job, because you don't really understand the machine you have, because you didn't actually invent it, and you got rid of the name of Magwitch, who was the real inventor, and you put Norm in there, who is also deceased, and Seaborg is deceased, and Giorso's deceased. Everybody's deceased. The only person alive in the group is myself and Buzz Aldrin. But Buzz Aldrin's in his 90s right now, so I don't even know how Buzz hasn't found out about this. I don't know how it's happened, because there was no TAE back then. This is, and they're claiming they have a long history, probably through name changes, and it would be illegal for them to do what they did. So I don't think Trump even knows this at all. And I think what's happening is this company, remember, whoever controls the energy and the propulsion part of the fusion is somehow out of the media story, because the media doesn't really understand fusion, and is going to be king on this planet of airspace and energy. This isn't just about energy, it's about airspace. So you've got a war, and it's a very serious war. And anybody who has a competitive device anywhere is either going to get purchased by TAE, or, I mean, if you've watched Yellowstone with Kevin Costner, which is a great drama, people will kill you over land, and they'll kill you over an energy source. Oh yes, they will. So does that mean that all the missing scientists on our list were, and the ones that we've identified, because who were killed, so if we go to our MIT fusion scientist murder, okay, so we got to Nuno L'Oreal. There he is. He is murdered. Let me just go to your share screen here. Let's go to share again. I should just leave it open, because here we go. Here we go right here. He's murdered 2 days after the Trump announcement. 2 days later, on the 18th of December. Right? So there is a saying, you kill the competition, right? I mean, you either buy them or you kill them. And of course, it looks like whoever killed him. I mean, the media can print any story they want. You know, if enough money is thrown at them, we don't know anything about his death. We're told a story of a random killer, right? Who just happened to kill this guy who's a fusion scientist 2 days after the Trump media announcement that they're merging with TAE Fusion Technologies. And when I researched also TAE's fusion machine, they're going to be fusing boron, which is where Magwitch started it in his early days, which is not a preferable energy source to work with boron. Helium-3 just blows it away completely. And the fact that they don't even know about helium-3 means these guys, I don't know how they threw this TAE fusion company together and gave it this long supposed history. But in their long supposed history with Norm, as far as I could see, unless Norm and Glenn Seaborg and Harry Hamlin were secretly forming a new company to transfer the technology over to with Norm and take it away from Magwitch. I didn't know about that unless that was happening. And I was at the board meetings, so I didn't see. And if they were creating a new company, why were they still going to board meetings with Magwitch's company? And that's a possibility, right? That they decided to create another company in parallel and just jump ship and get rid of Magwitch, right? I don't, it doesn't make any sense to me, because the person who invented the technology, most of the information's in their head. A small presentation of that is in the patent, but it doesn't mean you can walk away with the patent or buy the patents and know how it works. So
do you worry, David? Do you worry, like, because you know all this information, that you could be targeted, or do you ever, you know what I mean?
no, I don't really worry, because I don't think that's what's going on. I don't have anything. I would want a new energy source for this planet. I would want a new propulsion system for this planet. And I would be glad to help to make that happen. I'm not in a position where I'm trying to be a billionaire, right? I mean, I'm on a spiritual path my whole life, which is my life. And I'm not worried at all. I mean, I'm 65 years old this summer, and once you get to be my age, you can die at any time, pretty much. There's people younger than me. Like, look at Nick Pope. He was 62, and he just got.
Oh, I just got news yesterday. I had to take one of those. I'm 46 now, David, and I had to take one of those at-home call-in tests just because of my age. And then they just told me that something came back abnormal in it, so they want me to get a colonoscopy. So God knows what they're gonna tell me.
Yeah, I had a colonoscopy. They need to keep busy. They make money doing colonoscopies. And when I had mine, I did it without the painkillers, and it was one of the most painful things I've ever been through, next to kidney stones.
Oh God.
And they found polyps, but they're not cancerous. They're like little zits. They're tiny little specks. And they showed them to me, and they removed them. And like, they didn't even really need to do that, but they do, because of your age, will do a colonoscopy as like a standard medical, practice. But I'll never have another one again. I'll never have another colonoscopy again. So I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of death. I've met Jesus Christ in person, shining like the sun in front of me. So I have 100% faith in a much better world than this in the afterlife. And I'm sure that's where Magwitch is now, and his associates. And they're looking down at this going, I mean, this is a war over an energy source, on who's going to control this energy source on the future of this planet. And I understand how that works. Yeah, people will kill you for land. They'll kill you for drugs. They'll kill you for money. So when it comes to an energy source that is the value of which is in the trillions of dollars, yeah, of course they'll kill you. Yeah. And is there anything you can do about it? No. Do I think David Wilcock was murdered? I don't know. What I do know is from his own recordings in his last days, he was in serious financial trouble. And he was talking about how it's getting more and more impossible to make any money at all on this planet. And he's right. It's not just the AI, it's like even books. Like, he was an author. Nobody will buy your book anymore, right? I mean, I have books, and yet people don't read like they used to. They just don't. They'll read text, they'll read short articles online, but they're not going to pay to read a book. They don't pay for music. So the internet has really severely damaged the music industry, and they barely pay for movies because they can steal them. So when you destroy whole industries like that, so your artists, like, look who the internet thrives on the most. Everybody is supplying content for free. And the people at the top are making all the money, and they'll give you a tiny bit on your YouTube channel, just a smidgen of change, and they're walking away with mega billions, and they won't share it. So they're destroying authors, musicians, filmmakers, photographers have been completely destroyed. In fact, when I was in school, I won awards for best photographer, and in 2 different schools, and I was offered a scholarship at the I think it's called the Brookings. No, what's it called? It was called it was in Santa Barbara. It's like a legendary photography school. So, but today, very few photographers can make a living anymore because everybody's got.
Can I say it's they've done the same thing with like YouTube and like the podcast industry. Like even if you're on Rumble, or even if you have an audio podcast like me, I have all 3 and I make a little bit off of each one, but it's not a lot. Like I even posted my earnings the other day because I was telling my audience that but here's what I think it is, David, honestly. Like I think like, and I'm not like saying no, but like certain people shouldn't have YouTube channel. I think everybody has the right to have a YouTube channel, but because everybody has that right, it's oversaturated what we do. You know what I mean? Like, especially for me as a podcaster, the fact that everybody has a YouTube channel, there's so much more content out there. So less eyes are on certain things. So it's almost like you have to do something really outside of the box, or like, I don't even know what, but I think.
Well, that's what David Wilcock was saying. He's saying it's getting impossible to make, even though some people were sending him some money, and Wilcock was good at getting people to send him money. People don't send me any money. I don't make anything on my YouTube channel. 0.
Yeah.
I've been supplying content and since the Art Bell days for free. And yes, I charge for my products and services on my website, but even that's getting tough because people feel it's also because of real estate. The landlords want all of your earnings and they'll leave you a smidgen left for food and internet and utilities, and then there's nothing left. So people don't even go to restaurants as much anymore. The restaurant industry is shutting down, except for people who have a lot of money to eat in restaurants. So when they get to the point that it's just we're down to living in a box and food, you've killed the whole civilization because nobody's paying for arts and entertainment. Nobody's paying for music. They're not paying. They won't buy your book. They won't buy anything but a shirt and their food and their rent. And that's it. So that means those are the only industries left because AI is also going to steal mega millions of jobs, which it's already doing. And there's nobody at the top saying, what are we going to do with all the displaced workers? There's nobody that even cares. They don't care.
I went to the grocery store today. I just tell you, I went to the grocery store today. $6. They wanted $6 for a thing of grapes. You know what I mean? Watermelon went up, meat went up, steaks higher. You know, like steaks through the roof. You know
they just think there's no end to it because again, all of our money is the rent, the food, and the basic utilities. There's nothing left. You've killed them. The country at that point is in poverty. That is severe. Yeah, there's buildings standing, but you're in poverty now because you can't pay for anything that is elevating, or you can't pay for arts and entertainment anymore. You can't pay for even a trip with your family. God, to take my kids somewhere, my 2 daughters, I mean, hotels are $500 a night here in Canada and up and up. And I can go to Utah and still get hotels for $200 a night, but here they're $500 and up. So it's getting to the point that nobody's going to be able to go anywhere except for you can ride your bicycle because, and it's this is what Wilcock was saying, and I think most people miss this. So he was so massively financially in debt, and even though people were donating a little bit of money to him, he was done. And I think that's what killed him. Yes, that is murder. When you oppress your people so badly, and it's also a decision of the common person not to send you enough money for a cup of coffee, right? Like nobody even sends me $6 to buy a cup of coffee from her. Nothing. Zero. Everything's zero. And I get it. They're just paying their rent and their food, those $6 grapes. And that's it. There's nothing left. So the people at the top who are scooping, the internet is living on all of the content we volunteer in social media and all of the content we volunteer on YouTube and other Rumble and other places, and all the short little videos people are watching on TikTok. Those are people providing that content. And it could be, young women flashing their bodies to guys to, I see all this people jumping off cliffs and their ski videos, and I see all the body stuff, and it's like, okay, so this is all we're interested in, right? And then there's the UFO story, which I would say has a significant amount of interest. And Trump made his announcement that he was going to release the files. We haven't seen it happen yet. And probably going to be a watered down version of whatever they tell us. But yet the fight for the next energy source and the next propulsion source is at hand right now.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, when they, yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say, when we saw the release of the E-files, or I'll just say it, the Epstein files. Oh, shit.
Your audio just cut out there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Saying my microphone's working, but I don't know. Let me see if I can.
It's just a streaming issue. You're cutting in and out. That's all.
Shit. What the hell's going on?
No, I hear you now.
Hold on. I'll go out and come back in.
Okay.
All right, so can you hear me now, David?
Yeah.
About that, yeah. I can't even remember what I was going to say. It was something important. So do you what do you see with the disappearing scientists? Do you think they were all related to like do you think they were all working on UFO technology or like reverse engineered and like even more so like this nuclear fusion?
Well, I can say that some of those cases there might be mental illness involved. Some of them you could put it in 3 or 4 categories, and you couldn't draw a final conclusion. Obviously, we don't even know if they're telling us the real story of McCaslin, for example, walking out into the desert in New Mexico. Right? I lived in New Mexico. My dad lives in New Mexico still, and I know that country and that land really well. And we don't even know if that story is even true, right? We just know from his family that he's gone, right? And some of these might be real suicides there. And also, this is a psychological factor. My dad has a PhD in educational psychology from Berkeley. So I grew up with a psychologist. And you have to think of this. If a person works in classified programs, they're not allowed to tell their family anything. They live in intense isolation and secrecy their entire life. The psychological implications of holding secrets that would probably benefit the United States to an extremely high degree and take it to a whole new level of civilization. And knowing that those secrets and you can't release them is kind of like saying you're all in prison, and if I release this, you'll be out of prison, right? Because we're in a self-made financial prison. This is a prison. It was made. It's a game. There is enough food to feed everybody. I mean, in Canada, we grow, where I am now, we grow more grain than we can eat. So if you have more food than your people will eat, then there is no shortage of food. There's no shortage of energy. And so, but we're saying that, there's not enough money. It's a self-made prison. If there was a shortage of food and there wasn't enough timber and rock and concrete to make new homes, then you would say, well, there's really a shortage. But there isn't. The earth is abundant. It's abundant. It's full of materials In fact, British Columbia, where I live, is bigger than France, and there's nobody here. If you fly over this place, there's nobody here. But this country is also got the same poverty consciousness that the United States has. So here's what happened. 1960, I was born in 61, to 1980, the birth rate went from 4 children per woman. By 1980, 79, when I got out of high school, the birth rate was 1.7. Less than half in 20 years. And from 1980 to today, it just steadily went down to 1.25. And 1.25 includes sudden immigrant births, which are not really real native births. They're just sudden influx immigrants who are giving birth to children in these two countries of Canada and the United States. So our real birth rate is probably less than 1 per woman. 90% of my friends in LA, Los Angeles, that I grew up with for over 20 years did not have a kid. Women and men did not have a kid.
Yeah.
And that's because of this prison. So you can see Charlie Kirk's message was, make babies, everybody. Sorry, there's no money. Grapes are $6. I can't afford it. And then he's just like, well, go do it anyway. And then, well, no, the young people are saying no, because the money game the benefits went to a very small percentage of the population at the top and killed everybody else. So now there's a problem. You can't sustain a country with an aging population. So the immigrant influx starting from 1979 to today is massive. It's massive how many immigrants came to the United States. And Trump sees, oh my God, what's happened? These people aren't really Americans. They don't really love America the way American-born native several generation families love America. They're just looking for a job, and they rape our women and they kill people, and some of them are good and some of them are really screwed up. But I can see in Canada here, the mass immigration is the same thing, and they really don't like us. They don't like Native Canadians. They don't like Native Americans, and I mean even the earliest Americans and Canadians, the Native peoples. These immigrants don't care about anything but I want to survive. That's all they care about. And they don't even really understand the freedom of what Canada and America represents socially at all. They're just coming here. And so if you remove those immigrants because of the lack of babies, the whole thing collapses. Not just farming, but mining. And there's so many jobs that immigrants take up because we weren't having babies. Well, it wasn't for selfish reasons at all. It became financially impossible.
Absolutely.
The second I got out of high school, the houses in the city of where I went to high school is in Vancouver, because we moved from California in about 1972 back to Canada, our family. And complicated story, but when we get here, houses are $40,000 in the city. When I get out of high school, they tripled. In 5 years, they tripled. So I would go to a labor job in the beginning, and I worked as a tree planter for over 20 years here. Really hard job, which I loved. I love working really hard, but I wasn't going to even touch rent, let alone for a family. I could keep myself alive, but there's no way I was going to be able to have a kid. Just there's no way. And so that's what they did. They destroyed the ability of most people to have kids. And then one kid here, and then divorces. And then if you look at the number of kids in America that have to go into foster systems and get trafficked and murdered in those systems, and where Jeffrey Epstein was getting his girls from was in those failed, very poor family relationships, is where he was hunting them out. That's another huge percentage of failure of growing healthy American people, right? So we've destroyed it all, and only a tiny percentage at the top have kids that go to good schools and end up getting a half decent job, but it's not very many. So the whole place is going down, and everybody feels it. And Wilcock's statement that it's getting hard, it's getting impossible to make any money anymore. That's not just one guy. Oh, he's crazy. He shot himself in the head because he's stressed out about money. Believe me, this is happening to millions of Americans.
Absolutely.
Look at your fentanyl deaths. Look at the age group of the 100,000 Americans that are overdosing on fentanyl. They're all working class ages. You don't see elderly persons overdosing on fentanyl who are getting pension money. And then go look at the suicides, which is 50,000 a year. So you got 150,000 a year right there. And they're all young people.
Yeah.
So you're going to go blame it on the person who made the fentanyl, or are you going to blame it on what the conditions were that led to? So yes, you could say David Wilcock is working on very interesting stuff like I do, but he reached his financial end and put a gun to his head. I think that's what really happened. That's why I don't think anybody came for him. Could somebody hit him with a beam weapon? Yes, they could. But I don't even think they would. I don't think that there's any evidence that Wilcock was working on something that would undercut their, assets. And I could be wrong. I mean, he could have been hit by a beam weapon. It's possible. I mean, you put everything in the realm of possibilities, but you can't draw a conclusion until you have the evidence. The only evidence I see is in his own words. It's getting impossible to make any money anymore. Yeah, somebody sent him $30. I saw somebody send him $300. I mean, yeah, that'll pay for lettuce, but your dollar, like, you can't even use nickels anymore or dimes. You can't even put them in parking meters anymore. What do we even have pennies for, right? When I was a kid, if I mowed somebody's lawn in Modesto, California, and got $4, I was rich. I'd go to the store and buy all baseball cards and everything I wanted for $4. So we destroyed it. And it's been destroyed for a long time. This isn't new. This has been going on for the last 40, 50 years, getting progressively worse. Human beings in America are willing to live in worse and worse and worse conditions, piling in one apartment to pay the rent. It's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the people at the top who bought homes in the 60s and the 70s are comfortable. They are. But after that, by 1980, the birth rate is less than half. It tells you everything. And what happened to relationships? Consequentially, relationships were destroyed by the economy. And that's where all this weirdness stuff comes in. I mean, it's incredible. So,
can I ask you a question, Dave? One of the final questions. We have a question from the audience too that's about UFOs, but I want to ask you: do you think there's any way that, like, as America and Canada, that we can fix this, or do you think we're in a place where it's over?
No, I think that the money system is a failed system. It's a prison-based consciousness. There is no shortage of goods and services. There's no shortages of new designs to build new state-of-the-art cities. I think we've got to do more for young people than we've ever done in the history of the world to rescue the birth rate, to have naturally born Americans and Canadians. The government needs to build them all housing. And get all these landlords that are killing them with high rents will lose their free, lunch ticket, which is abuse, right? Trump came in and tried to cut the corporations from buying family homes as investments. You should not be able to buy those family homes as investments. Those are for families. He tried to stop that and they wouldn't let him. He tried to go after the credit card companies for their massive 25% huge interest
30%, sometimes even higher, sometimes 37%.
They're killing families. And he tries to go after them, and there's so many lawyers that come in and so much legislation because the people at the top are keeping the slaves at the bottom, and the people at the top are the elderly sitting on massive wealth that they don't even need.
Yeah.
And they're the ones making everybody suffer down here.
I'm not usually bipartisan. I consider myself more of an independent, but you can see that a lot of this is caused by like the what the Democrats. I mean, it's not. I'm not pointing fingers, but like it seems like like that they're responsible for a lot of the immigration and a lot of these.
Yeah, they're responsible for the immigration, but the birth rate itself is the real problem. Why they need immigrants? So they think, we'll just have immigrants. Well, that's not fixing America and Canada. We're the same. We have the same birth rate, the same racial profile. We came from the same place. We screwed the Native Americans completely, and we should have honored our land treaties and lived more in harmony together. Yes, we were bound to meet on this planet. It was going to happen no matter what. And yes, they used to fight each other a lot. They had a lot of wars, but they were here first. So the bottom line is we do the same thing to our own people that we did to them. We screw them. And the people at the top sitting there with this massive greed factor, it's just incredible how much greed there is at the top. Watching all these young people, like I read the New York Times a lot, and I read families in New York have to live in a tiny apartment, and they make bunk beds, and the parents sleep at the bottom and the kids at the top in one room with two working adults. That's incredible. That's
incredible. I remember when I went to Florida back in like 2008, 2009, I was staying at my friend's house, and like in Florida, they had turned like these strip motels into like miniature apartments, and there was like full families living in like what would be considered a miniature motel, not miniature, but like a mini motel room, that was on a motel strip. Those were turned into like apartments, and that was 2009. So I can't imagine what's going on now.
And if you get on an airplane, you get on an airplane and you fly over India, which I've done, and the Indians are using all their land. You fly over America, it's almost all empty. Almost all empty. Same with Canada. There's nobody here. We are so oppressive in Canada. What we do to families here, we destroy families here. We're worse than the United States, which is why we were founded approximately the same time. We have nobody. America has 380 million people. We've got like, oh my God, we've got nobody, like 50 million, somewhere in there. Like, we're tiny. California is bigger than all of Canada. So it's oppression that does that. We have trees, we have water, and I'm right now building, by law, I can only build 100 square feet, which is the same as America. So I'm building 100 square foot, 10-foot ceiling garden house because I got to grow a lot of my own food for my family. I'm growing food. So I have starter plants in there. I'm building this thing myself with a nail gun and hammers and tools. And if I can build, like I built this office myself, this place, it's got a 10-foot ceiling. If you give people the resources, we don't need to have homelessness at all. Start a new city. In fact, Trump in his first term talked about starting new state-of-the-art cities on BLM land, but it never happened. You know why? Because the big real estate development companies, they're living with the slaves, paying them that huge amount of rent so they can sit up there on the top in their penthouses and have homes all over the planet and fly around. I mean, that's what's really going on. So we're killing our own people, but it isn't new. So is it the Democrats or the Republicans? It's way bigger than that. We've allowed, I would say it's the banks. The banks are the ones that, like, I remember when I was a young laborer and houses were $150,000 out of high school, and I said I want a mortgage, and they just look at you and laugh. Well, you laugh at me. Well, there's going to be no kids. Okay. So, because if you don't have your kids by a certain age, I had my kids late, and believe me, it's tough. It's really tough. And because I'm 65 this year. So, and I've still got a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. And I'm one of the only friends in my group of friends in LA, and there's dozens and dozens of them. No kids, no kids, no kids, no kids. I can just call them all up. No kids, no kids, no kids, no kids. Even the women. And then one rich guy I knew from Aspen had 2 boys with his wife who worked for Google. That's it. Nobody else. So when one family stops producing, the literally over 10,000 years, I mean, since the last ice age, what did it take to build my family bloodline, your bloodline, the next bloodline? When you don't reproduce, it's gone. You ended the whole thing. It's over.
Yeah.
And it's the banks in the end that I think are doing this. They're largely responsible.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, when I read your bio, well, one of the things that you've studied vegetarian diet for a long time. I just wanted to ask you this real quick. Do you feel like it's the food, like the animals and stuff, that are getting a lot of people sick here? And is that one of the reasons?
No, I'm not a vegetarian anymore. I did that for 40 years.
Oh, you did for 40 years?
I'm still mostly vegetarian. I feel there were a lot of problems, especially with the stresses of a North American lifestyle, that the vegetarian diet was, it's very peaceful. You do feel more at peace. I meditate every single day, which I've been doing my whole life, which is a whole other part of my life example of attaining higher states of consciousness through meditation. Right. I made this t-shirt in AI here with this meditator with the beam of light coming out of the third eye, right? Like Christ was a master at consciousness, right? If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be filled with light, is a parable about attaining enlightenment by attaining singularity and focus. But even Christianity lost a lot of those practices. So diet matters. Grow as much as your own food as you can, because food is insane what it costs. And when the fuel price goes up, the transportation of that food causes the food price to go up. And we're at the point now where if the older generation don't surrender their homes for young people to grow new families with, it's over. Like this country, these 2 countries will be devoured by immigrants. They will be. There's no other way to do it. What are you going to do? Make AI babies? I mean, I know the Republicans right now have spoken exactly about this. So you have energy systems, nuclear fusion, anti-gravity would change the whole picture, because you could levitate an iceberg, drop it in a farming belt, and have plenty of water. There's so many things you could do. And you could build new cities with state-of-the-art technology for young people to have families. And no, they can't go to a bank and get a mortgage for $1 million house. And no, you got to build the houses for them. You're going to have to, because if you want young people who would, and there's not a lot of them left, to start a proper regeneration of America and Canada, then you're going to have to just build it and cut the banks out and say, we're printing national money. This is an emergency, people. This is a real, forget India, forget Africa's population in China. In fact, they have aging population problems too in China, massive ones. Because of the next 30 years, the number of people in China that are going to drop dead, and America and Canada, is huge. It's staggering.
That's one thing. I don't know if you would agree with this, David, but I kind of like the idea of America first. Like, I thought that we should have never been over in Iran. I don't know if there's strategic reasons for being over in Iran, but I'd love to see the Iranian people free, but like, it's like you said, we have so many problems here in America that like, I don't think we could afford to be there right now. Sure, it's nice to have free people and stuff like that. And America's supposed to be the beacon of freedom, but what's the cost to us? Because I don't think it's doing anything good for America right now. I don't know.
If we would have given Magwitch his money for his fusion machine, when I was trying to get him his money vigorously, I spent a lot of money, and so did my partners, to host meetings with these mega millionaires to try and get the money. And all we did is spend money and go under. We just went under.
Yeah.
Because nobody would put up that money. I remember this letter I got from Yoko Ono Lennon, who was worth staggering amount of money at the time. She was at least $500 million, that she wasn't going to do anything. and she was going to make T-shirts for John Lennon, and she's today sitting on massive real estate. She's one of those people whose husband was singing about peace and love and oneness, and she's a massive real estate mogul. That's what she is, and she's elderly, very elderly, and she's not going to do anything. So you gotta come from the perspective that the way to rebuild it is, if you have the energy at home, you do not need to be in Iran. Let them use their oil for their own cars and get off oil here and have. In fact, Magwich's dream was to put a miniature fusion reactor as big as my fist in a car, and he said you would never have to recharge it. It wouldn't be like a rechargeable battery car. He said it would just run the car forever.
Yeah.
Wow, and that's because the helium-3 reactor breeds more helium-3, so it just keeps breeding fuel and recycling the fuel. So in that sense, it is a free energy machine. And he knew how to do all this. And once that Air Force study was done and it proved it was going to work, that was it.
Yeah.
The Democrats blocked us everywhere. We had a guy in the U.S. Department of Energy. We used to have to deal with this guy all the time. I have an investor interested. He calls them up and tells them to stay away from us. And they tell me this. I got a call. And they feel like their life is in danger because they're getting that call. So it's somebody deep inside of the U.S. government who is in bed with the oil industry who felt threatened by the fusion machine, is why we would rather make the Middle Eastern people filthy rich on their oil than keep that money at home and run our cars on fusion machines and electric motors. I don't know why we're that stupid, but that consciousness, that's why I keep going back to the family. The failure of the family, the failure of the birth rate is a perfect reflection of the failure of keeping the money home. I think Trump wants to keep the money home. And I think that's why he's going to invest in nuclear fusion. The problem is the company he's going to invest in it doesn't matter. See, if I throw $100 billion at the wrong blueprints to build a machine, it's not going to make it work any better. A scientist like Magwitch with a mind like that, it doesn't happen very often. And Nikola Tesla doesn't show up on Earth just because you want it to. Do they come out of the universities? Not very often. The big inventors don't usually necessarily. The ones that change the world, pretty rarely do they ever come out of the university system.
Wow.
Einstein didn't have a PhD. Tesla had a bachelor's degree. Edison was an absolute genius. There were a lot of geniuses whose technologies we never used ever. I've studied them. We just never used them.
Wow.
So you don't get those geniuses every day. Oh, we got money now. Now we can go fund a genius. No, doesn't. Go ahead, throw $6 billion at TAE Fusion. They're trying to fuse boron. They're way in the dark ages. They're not going to do anything. They're going to give you promises to drive the stock price up so they can all make a bunch of money. And then they're going to say, because I've been studying fusion my whole life. I know every machine. I know how they work. I know why they won't work. And Magwitch was right. He taught me. The Russian tokamak design, which monopolized most of the money from governments on nuclear fusion machines, has still never produced any significant amount of energy at all.
Wow.
It's a big waste of money.
Wow.
So anyway, with that, like the UFO, the anti-gravity, and that technology that we're holding inside of these labs, and knowing that if I release that technology, like McCaslin gives it as an example, they're going to kill me because it's national security. Well, you're withholding. We've already destroyed America and Canada's family. It's already happened. We have psychological ramifications for what we've done to the family. And I think a lot of this strangeness out there, I'll call it, is a byproduct of the destruction of the human psyche and the family and the healthy male female relationships. It's all financial. It's all financial. And so that's why there's not enough babies, Charlie Kirk. You can't just tell Americans and go around lecturing about how everybody needs to start making babies and become born again Christians. It's not that simple. I wish, in old America, there were a lot of churches, a lot of families got together, and couples met each other in churches, which is a wonderful thing. And communing with God is a wonderful thing. But the family got destroyed by the banks. It's the banks that did it. Don't think it's the Republicans or necessarily the Democrats and the Republicans who did it. I think it's the banks.
Well, that would make sense. Yeah. Well, this has been amazing, David. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And I think this was a really good episode. Do you want to tell people how they can follow you and get your products and stuff like that?
You can see my website is under my name here, davidsereda.co. You can see my therapeutic coil systems, my full frequency magnetic wave sound systems, my staffs, my frequency treated jewelry, which I've been wearing this. It's incredible what happens when you tune your nervous system with proper frequencies. You really, really get a much more clear mind and a much more creative mind. And there's so many health benefits to frequency tuning a human being. But thank you for having me on, Robert, and have a great rest of your week.
Yeah. And guys, you go check out David's website. He has amazing products, the staffs, wands, frequency jewelry, and get some of his stuff. Support the people that come on the show. Yeah. And it's davidsereda.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm barely hanging in there myself. Thank you very much.
And then also you have a YouTube channel too, right? And people can.
Yeah, my YouTube channel. You just go on YouTube and search my name, and you'll see my channel there, where I post every week.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
I'm going to be in the garden all summer. I've got to grow my own food because I can't afford these prices.
I hear you, man. It's crazy. It is. It's nuts. It's I hope we can turn it around. I really do. I hope
it could be done. We need a new money system. We just need to scrap the whole old system.
I agree.
And say this isn't working because we do have the resources, we do have the food, we do have the services. We do have the concrete. We have everything we need. We can make brand new cities out on BLM land, which is what Trump said in his first term. Haven't seen it yet, but that's the start. You can't go into debt. This whole idea that money is debt, it doesn't work. Get rid of it. And it's going to take an iconoclasm to do what I'm talking about. But you've got to snowball this idea out there that we're watching people die. We're watching fathers kill their kids and their wives. And because of the financial pressure is the number one reason you see those family suicides. It's the number one reason. Just watch it. Look at the news. Look at what's happening when a mother kills all her kids because she knows that there's no mercy. They'll throw you right on the street with your kids. They will. And that's got to stop. It's just got to stop. All right. Have a great day. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much, David. And thank you, everybody. And I'll see you guys tonight. I'm live again tonight. I have Anchor Haven coming on tonight. And then I have Missy Hill. So I have two shows tonight. Anchor Haven at 7 p.m. Eastern and then Missy Hill at 9 p.m. Eastern. So, I got to make the links still. I haven't made the links. I've been behind today because I haven't been feeling too well. But, I will see you guys all tonight. And, good guys, support David. He's a really good guy, and he's a brilliant person. David Sereda is a brilliant person. So check out his frequency jewelry, check out his stuff, his products he makes, and it's davidsereda.co. And thank you guys, and I'll see you guys tonight.